The warning lights flashed red across the control panel, but David Reed kept his hands steady on the navigation controls. His cargo hauler groaned as it slipped between two massive asteroids, each one large enough to crush his ship into dust. He knew taking the shortcut through the veteran belt was dangerous, but the payment for this delivery depended on him arriving before the deadline. Late deliveries meant no credits, and no credits meant no fuel for the next run. The asteroids drifted past his viewport like silent mountains in the darkness of space. David had been flying cargo routes for nearly 8 years now, ever since he left his old life behind. The work was lonely but simple. Pick up goods at one station, deliver them to another, try not to think too much about the past. That was how he preferred things these days. His scanner beeped suddenly, showing something unusual ahead. David leaned forward, squinting at the display. There was a faint signal coming from deeper in the asteroid field, the kind of signal that emergency pods sent out when someone was in trouble. He checked his clock. If he stopped to investigate, he would definitely miss his delivery window. The signal beeped again, weaker this time. David cursed under his breath and adjusted his course toward the signal. He had been a paramedic once, back before the colony disaster took his wife and daughter. Some habits died hard, and ignoring a distress call was not something he could do, even now. The source of the signal appeared between two spinning asteroids. It was an escape pod, badly damaged and wedged into a narrow gap. Scorch marks covered its hull, and one side was completely caved in. David maneuvered his hauler closer, using the mechanical arm to grab the pod and pull into his cargo bay. His ship's computer voice chimed in immediately. Warning: unknown biological signature detected in rescue pod. Species identification, Draconiae. Recommend immediate quarantine procedures. David felt his stomach tighten. The Draconiae were known across every space station and colony in the galaxy. They were dragon-like creatures, massive and powerful, with scales that could deflect most weapons and breath that could melt steel. More importantly, they were dangerous. The Draconiae kept to themselves, and the few times they interacted with other species, violence usually followed. Every spacer knew the rule. If you see a Draconiae ship, you go the other direction. But a distress signal was a distress signal. David sealed his flight suit and grabbed his emergency medical kit before heading down to the cargo bay. The escape pod sat in the middle of the floor, still smoking slightly. He approached carefully and activated the external release. The pod's door hissed open, and a wave of heat rushed out. Inside was a Draconiae, but not the massive warrior he expected. She was young, probably barely an adult by their species standards, and she was hurt badly. Her scales were a deep blue color mixed with silver, and several of them were cracked or missing entirely. Burns covered her arms and chest, and her wings, those beautiful membrane wings that Draconiae were famous for, were torn in multiple places. Blood, dark purple and thick, pooled beneath her. Her amber eyes snapped open as David approached. Fear and pain filled those eyes, and then something else. Rage. She lunged at him despite her injuries, her mouth opening to release a gout of flame. But only weak sparks came out. She was too badly hurt to do much damage. David stepped back calmly, keeping his hands visible. Easy, he said softly. I'm not going to hurt you. You're safe here. The Draconiae girl tried to stand, but collapsed immediately. She made a sound that might have been a growl or a sob. David moved closer slowly, the way he used to approach frightened patients in his paramedic days. He knelt beside her, opening his medical kit. I know you probably don't understand me, David said, keeping his voice gentle and steady. But you're bleeding badly, and those burns need treatment. I'm going to help you, okay? She watched him with those amber eyes, her body tense and ready to strike if he made one wrong move. But David had steady hands and a calm demeanor that came from years of treating injured people. He began cleaning her wounds carefully, applying the synthetic skin patches that would work on most species. The Draconiae girl flinched at first, but then seemed to realize he truly meant no harm. As he worked, David noticed something clutched in her clawed hand. It was a small data chip, the kind used for important records. She held it protectively even in her unconscious moments, as if it was the most valuable thing in the universe. What happened to you? David wondered aloud as he bandaged a particularly deep wound on her shoulder. What are you running from? The girl's breathing began to slow and deepen. The medical patches were working, dulling her pain and helping her body start the healing process. Her eyes began to close, exhaustion finally overtaking fear. Rest now, David told her. Whatever you're running from, it can't get you here. Just as she fell into what looked like genuine sleep, David's ship computer blared an alert. He rushed back to the cockpit and checked the scanners. A massive ship had just entered the asteroid field, far larger than any civilian vessel. The design was unmistakably Draconiae, all sharp angles and dark metal that looked like it was built for war rather than travel, and a message broadcast across all frequencies, spoken in the harsh and rumbling language of the Draconiae. But his computer translated it immediately. Attention, all vessels. A criminal of royal blood has been stolen from Draconiae space. The fugitive must be returned immediately. Any who harbor this criminal will be considered enemies of House Vorith and dealt with accordingly. Surrender the stolen property now, and you will be compensated. Resist, and you will be destroyed. David looked back toward the cargo bay where the injured girl lay sleeping. Royal blood. He had just rescued a Draconiae princess, and now a warship was hunting her. His hand hovered over the communications button. He could call them, explain it was just a rescue, hand her over, and collect whatever reward they offered. That would be the smart thing, the safe thing, but something about the message bothered him. Stolen property. Criminal. Those were not words you used for a princess unless something was very wrong. David pulled his hand away from the communications button and instead pushed the throttle forward. His hauler's engines roared to life, pushing the ship deeper into the asteroid field. If they wanted the girl, they would have to catch him first. Behind him, the warship's sensors locked onto his signature and began pursuit. The asteroids became David's allies as he pushed his cargo hauler through gaps that seemed impossibly narrow. Behind him, the Draconiae warship followed like a predator tracking wounded prey. Its weapons systems were charging, the energy signatures showing up clearly on his scanner. One direct hit from those weapons would vaporize his small ship instantly. David yanked the controls hard to the left, diving under a tumbling asteroid the size of a small moon. The warship fired, and the space where his hauler had been moments before exploded in white-hot energy. Chunks of rock vaporized into plasma. His hands were sweating inside his flight suit gloves, but he kept moving, using every trick he had learned in 8 years of flying dangerous routes. That a groan came from the cargo bay. The Draconiae girl was waking up. David set the autopilot to continue evasive maneuvers and rushed back down. She was sitting up now, her amber eyes wide and focused. When she saw him, she tried to stand, swaying on her feet. "You need to rest," David said, moving toward her carefully. "Those wounds are serious." To his surprise, she spoke, her voice rough but understandable. "Why did you take me? Are you working for them?" "I found your distress signal," David explained. "I'm not working for anyone except myself. I'm just a cargo hauler who made the mistake of having a conscience." The ship shuddered as another blast struck nearby. The Draconiae girl looked up at the ceiling, then back at David. "You are running from House Vorith. Because of me. That warship called you stolen property," David said. "Want to explain that?" She was silent for a long moment, her clawed hands clenching and unclenching. Finally, she spoke. "My name is Kira. I am the youngest daughter of the Draconiae Sovereign Council. House Vorith killed my mother and my sisters. They tried to kill me too, but I escaped." David felt the blood drain from his face. "You're not just royalty. You're the last of the royal bloodline." "Yes." Kira looked down at her damaged scales. "House Vorith wants to end the old ways. For centuries, the Sovereign Council was led by matriarchs, by females who valued wisdom and balance. But House Vorith believes only in strength and conquest. They want to control all Draconiae, to make us into weapons for their ambitions. And you're the only one who can challenge their claim to power," David said, understanding now why the warship was so determined. "I am nothing." Kira's voice broke slightly. I am alone, wounded and hunted. Even if I live, what can one person do against an entire house? The ship rocked again, harder this time. Alarms blared from the cockpit. David ran back up, with Kira limping behind him despite her injuries. The view screen showed 3 more warships emerging from hyperspace. House Vorith was not taking chances. We cannot win, Kira said quietly. You should surrender me. At least you will live. David looked at the warships surrounding them, then at the controls of his hauler. His fingers moved across the panel, plotting a hyperspace jump. I spent years running from my past, from the pain of losing my family. I told myself that staying alone and keeping my head down was the smart choice. But you know what? I'm tired of running, and I'm tired of doing nothing. You are being foolish, Kira said, but there was something in her voice. Hope, maybe, or just surprise that anyone would take such a risk for her. Probably, David agreed. He activated the communication system. Attention House Vorith vessels. This is independent hauler David Reed. The girl on my ship is under my protection. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. The response came immediately, filled with contempt. You are a human. Weak, soft, and foolish. You will die for this arrogance. Maybe, David said, but at least I'll die knowing I did the right thing. He cut the transmission and grabbed the hyperspace controls. The warships were closing in, weapons fully charged and ready to fire. Kira stood beside him, watching him with those amber eyes that had seen so much death and pain. Why, she asked. Why would you risk everything for someone you just met? My people have always said humans were weak, that you lack the strength to survive in this galaxy. Yet you fight for me when you have no reason to. David thought about his wife and daughter, about the day the colony's life support had failed and he had been off-world on a supply run. He thought about all the times since then when he had chosen safety over compassion, when he had looked away from people who needed help because getting involved was too risky. Your people are wrong about humans, he said quietly. Strength is not about claws or fire or how many weapons your ship carries. Real strength is choosing to help someone even when it costs you everything. Real strength is standing up when it would be easier to walk away. The warships fired in unison, multiple beams of destructive energy converging on David's position. His finger slammed down on the hyperspace activation button. The universe twisted and stretched, and suddenly the asteroids and warships disappeared, replaced by the swirling colors of faster-than-light travel. They were safe, at least for now. Kira sank into the co-pilot's chair, her body shaking with exhaustion and relief. David noticed tears forming in her amber eyes, something he had not known Draconi could do. No one has ever protected me before, she said softly. In my culture, we are taught to be strong alone, to never show weakness or ask for help. I watched my mother and sisters die because we cannot trust anyone, not even our own guards. And now a human, someone my people call weak, has risked his life to save mine. David pulled up the navigation computer, checking their course. We're heading to Coalition Station Harmony. It's neutral territory with representatives from dozens of species. If we can get there, we can present your case to the authorities. They have to help once they know the truth about House Vorith. And if they do not believe me, Kira asked, then we'll figure something else out, David said. He turned to look at her, this dangerous and powerful creature who right now looked like a frightened teenager. I'm not giving up on you, Kira. We're in this together now. Kira reached out slowly with one clawed hand. David did not flinch. She placed her hand gently on his shoulder, careful not to pierce his skin with her sharp talons. Thank you, David Reed, she said. You have shown me that maybe strength and compassion are not opposites. Maybe they are the same thing. The hyperspace journey would take several hours. David showed Kira to the small crew quarters where she could rest properly. As he helped her bandage her wings more securely, she began to relax around him, the constant tension in her body easing slightly. Do all humans act like you? Kira asked. Some do, some don't, David admitted. We're not perfect, but most of us try to help when we can. That's just who we are. Back in the cockpit, David checked the long-range sensors. House Vorith had already issued a galaxy-wide bounty for Kira's capture. The message claimed she had murdered her own family and was a dangerous criminal. No mention of the truth, of course. David knew that when they reached Coalition Station Harmony, things would get complicated. House Vorith had power and influence across many systems. Who would believe a simple cargo hauler over them? But as he looked back at Kira, sleeping peacefully for the first time since her escape, David knew he had made the right choice. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Coalition Station Harmony lived up to its name in appearance only. The massive circular structure hung in neutral space, housing representatives from over 40 different species. David guided his cargo hauler into the docking bay, with Kira hidden in the crew quarters. He could already see the problem they faced. The docking bay workers, a mix of species from across the galaxy, all stopped what they were doing when they saw his ship's registration and cargo manifest. Word traveled fast in space stations. Everyone knew about the bounty by now. David helped Kira put on a long cloak that covered most of her distinctive scales and wings. It would not fool anyone looking closely, but it might buy them a few minutes. They walked down the boarding ramp together, trying to act casual. That plan lasted about 30 seconds that a security officer, some kind of insectoid species David did not recognize, pointed at them immediately. That is a Dracanii. All Dracanii are required to report to security for documentation. She's with me, David said calmly. We need to speak to the station commander about a political matter. More security officers appeared, forming a loose circle around them. David noticed how the other aliens in the docking bay moved away quickly, putting distance between themselves and Kira. Fear was universal, it seemed. The Dracanii reputation for violence preceded her wherever she went. The station commander has already issued orders, the insectoid officer said. The Dracanii fugitive is to be detained until House Vorith representatives arrive to collect her. She's not a fugitive, David argued. She's a refugee fleeing from people who murdered her family. That is for House Vorith to determine, not you. The officer gestured to his team. Take her into custody. Kira's hand moved instinctively to her side, where David knew she kept a small blade she had found in his emergency supplies. He put his hand on her arm, stopping her. Violence will only prove them right about you, he said quietly. They will give me to House Vorith, Kira whispered back, her voice tight with fear. I will not if I can help it. David stepped forward, placing himself between Kira and the security team. I'm invoking Coalition Emergency Protocol 7. Any being fleeing political persecution has the right to a hearing before being extradited. Check your regulations. The insectoid officer's antennae twitched in annoyance, but he pulled out a datapad and checked. After a moment, he looked up. You are correct, but the hearing must happen within 6 standard hours, or she will be released to the claimant party. Then set up the hearing, David said. We'll present our evidence. The officer did not look happy, but rules were rules on coalition stations. You have until night cycle. Commander Shulnai will oversee the proceeding. Do not attempt to leave the station. David and Kira were escorted to a waiting area, a small room with plain metal walls and uncomfortable chairs. Once they were alone, Kira paced like a caged animal, her tail lashing back and forth. 6 hours, she said. House Vorith will send assassins before then. They will not risk me speaking the truth in an open hearing. The station has security, David pointed out. Kira laughed bitterly. You still do not understand. House Vorith has influence everywhere. Credits by loyalty across all species. Someone on this station is already in their pocket. She was probably right. David thought quickly. Then we don't wait here like sitting targets. Over the next few hours, David led Kira through the maintenance tunnels beneath the main station levels. He had spent enough time on space stations to know that the real life happened in the lower levels, where workers and refugees and forgotten people made their homes. It was also where they would be harder to find. They passed through areas where different species gathered in small communities. A group of pale, amphibious aliens who worked in the water recycling plants. A family of rock-like beings who maintained the station's structural integrity. Each time they passed by, the aliens noticed Kira and shrank away from her. They fear me, Kira said sadly. Everyone does. Can you blame them? David asked. The stories about the Draconi are not exactly gentle. My people were not always like this, Kira said. My mother told me stories of the old times, before the wars, when Draconi traveled among the stars as guardians and friends to other species. We bonded with other races, protected them, learned from them. But centuries of civil war changed us. We became what others feared we were. They reached a lower marketplace where refugees from various conflicts gathered. The air smelled of strange foods and desperation. David used his few remaining credits to buy some basic supplies. As he was paying, he noticed a group of children, orphans from a recent war in a nearby system, huddled together and shivering despite the station's controlled temperature. Without thinking, David opened his pack and pulled out the food rations he had just bought. He walked over and handed them to the children. They looked up at him with wide eyes, too shocked to say anything. Kira watched this exchange with her amber eyes. After they moved on, she spoke quietly. You gave them your food. You barely have enough credits for yourself, yet you gave to those children. They needed it more than I do, David said simply. This is what humans do. Kira asked. You see suffering and you try to ease it, even at cost to yourself? Most of us try, David said. Does not always work out, but we try. They found a quiet corner in an abandoned storage area. Kira sat down heavily, her wounds clearly still causing pain despite the treatment. David checked her bandages, making sure none of the healing patches had come loose during their movement through the tunnels. Tell me about your mother, David said as he worked. You said she told you stories. Kira's expression softened. She was wise and kind, things that House Vorith considers weaknesses. She believed the Draconi could return to our old ways, that we could be more than weapons and warriors. She tried to make peace with other species, to rebuild the bonds our ancestors once had. That's why House Vorith killed her, David said. Yes, peace does not serve their purposes. They want war, conquest, expansion through fear and force. Kira looked at her clawed hands. Sometimes I wonder if they are right. Look at me. I am built for violence. My fire, my claws, my strength. Perhaps this is all the Draconi can ever be. You're wrong, David said firmly. You know how I know? Because you're sitting here questioning it. Because you ran instead of fighting. Because you helped me navigate through those tunnels instead of just knocking down walls. Strength can be used for protection instead of destruction. Your mother understood that. Kira was quiet for a long moment. Then she began to hum, a low and melodic sound that resonated in her chest. It was beautiful and haunting, unlike anything David had ever heard. That's a Draconi song, he said. The Lullaby of Stars, Kira confirmed. My mother sang it to me when I was young. It is from the old times, before we forgot how to be gentle. She continued humming, and David found himself relaxed by the sound. For a few minutes, they were not a hunted princess and a cargo hauler in over his head. They were just two people sharing a moment of peace in a chaotic universe that a loud alarm shattered that peace. David's communication device beeped urgently. He answered it and heard the insectoid security officer's voice. David Reed, you are ordered to report to the detention level immediately. House Vorith representatives have arrived in force. Commander Shulnai has moved your hearing up to now. You have 10 minutes to present your case, or the Draconi will be released to House Vorith custody. David looked at Kira. Ready to face them? Kira stood, throwing off the cloak. Her scales gleamed in the dim light, and despite her injuries, she held herself with the dignity of royalty. If we are to die, we will die with honor. We're not dying, David said. We're going to tell the truth, and we're going to make them listen. They walked together toward the hearing chamber, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether Kira lived or died, and whether one human's compassion would be enough to stand against the power of an entire warlike house. The hearing chamber was packed with representatives from dozens of species, all curious to see what would happen when a human challenged House Vorith over a Draconi princess. David and Kira stood in the center of the room while Commander Shulnai, a crystalline being whose body reflected light in rainbow patterns, Presided from an elevated platform on the opposite side stood 3 Draconiai warriors from House Vorith, each one massive and armored, their scales dark red like dried blood. The leader, a scarred male named General Draven, stared at Kira with open contempt. "This hearing is a waste of time," Draven announced, his voice deep and threatening. "The criminal Kira murdered her family in a failed attempt to seize power. She must be returned to Draconiai space for judgment." "That's a lie," David said loudly, and every eye in the chamber turned to him. "Kira didn't murder anyone. House Vorith killed the royal family to take control of the Sovereign Council. You have proof of this accusation?" Commander Shulnai asked, her crystalline voice chiming like bells. David held up the data chip Kira had been clutching when he found her. "This chip contains the security footage from the royal palace. It shows exactly what happened." He inserted the chip into the chamber's main display system. The holographic projection showed the interior of a beautiful palace, all elegant architecture and ancient art. Then the doors burst open and House Vorith soldiers poured in. What followed was brutal and quick. The Sovereign Council members, all female, tried to defend themselves, but they were outnumbered and betrayed by their own guards. The entire chamber watched in silence as the last of the royal family fell. Only Kira escaped, badly wounded, through a secret passage. When the footage ended, the chamber remained silent. Then General Draven laughed. "This proves nothing. The footage is clearly fabricated by the criminal to support her lies." "The metadata is intact," David countered. "Any tech expert can verify this as genuine." "Then it shows that House Vorith acted to stop a corrupt council from destroying our people," Draven said smoothly. "The old matriarchy was weak, leading the Draconiai toward extinction. We did what was necessary." "You committed genocide," Kira said, her voice shaking with rage. "You murdered my mother, my sisters, everyone who stood for the old ways." "The old ways were failure," Draven shot back. "Peace made us weak. Compassion made us targets. House Vorith will make the Draconiai strong again through conquest and discipline." Commander Shulnai's crystalline body flickered with uncertain light. "This is clearly an internal Draconiai political matter. The coalition does not interfere in species-specific governance issues." David felt his heart sink. They were going to let House Vorith take Kira. The coalition representatives were already moving toward that decision, too afraid of Draconiai military power to stand up for what was right. "Then you're all cowards," David said. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Commander Shulnai's glow intensified. "You will watch your tone, human." "No, I will not," David said, his voice growing stronger. "You all sit here and watch footage of murder, of a genocide carried out against the rightful leaders of an entire species, and you call it an internal matter because you're too scared to do the right thing." "The Draconiai are powerful," one of the other representatives said. "We cannot risk war over one refugee." David laughed bitterly. "You think House Vorith will stop with their own species? They just told you their whole philosophy. Strength through conquest. You really think they'll be satisfied controlling just the Draconiai?" He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from every species present. "Every single one of you has taken advantage of human aid. When the plague hit the Rylan colonies, human medical teams arrived first. When the Kelmar homeworld was destroyed by that asteroid, human ships rescued survivors. When pirates attacked the veteran trade routes, human peacekeepers drove them off. What is your point?" Commander Shulnai asked. "My point is that humans help people," David said. "We don't ask who you are, what you've done, or whether helping you benefits us. We see someone in trouble, and we help. That's what makes us human. And right now, every species in this chamber is failing that basic test of decency." He walked closer to the representative platform, and Kira moved with him, standing tall despite her injuries. "Kira came to me dying," David continued. "I could have ignored her distress signal. I could have handed her over to House Vorith and collected the bounty. I could have made the safe choice, the easy choice. But I didn't, because that's not who humans are. We protect those who cannot protect themselves." General Draven sneered. "Humans are weak. This display proves it. You cling to sentiment and compassion while the strong rule the galaxy. Is that what you think? David asked. That strength is just about who has the biggest weapons or the sharpest claws. Before Draven could respond, alarm klaxons began blaring throughout the station. Commander Shulnai received an urgent message on her personal device. Her crystalline body flickered in surprise. 3 human vessels have just arrived in the system, she announced. They are requesting immediate permission to dock and attend this hearing. The chamber's view screen activated, showing 3 ships hovering near the station. David recognized the designs immediately. A medical frigate, a diplomatic vessel, and a small defense corvette. They were part of Earth's humanitarian response fleet, the ships humans sent to help in crisis situations across the galaxy. General Draven looked shaken for the first time. This is a Draconi matter. Humans have no authority here. The chamber doors opened, and a human woman in a formal diplomatic uniform strode in. She was middle-aged with gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too much suffering. Captain Nora Briggs of the Earth Diplomatic Corps, she announced. And humans have every authority when we witness genocide and the persecution of refugees. She walked straight to Commander Shulnai and handed her a datapad. This contains evidence gathered by Earth intelligence over the past 6 months. House Vorith has been systematically eliminating all Draconi females who could challenge their power. Kira is not the only survivor, but she is the most important because she is the last of the royal bloodline. More data appeared on the chamber's main display. Messages between House Vorith commanders, records of assassinations, evidence of bribed officials across multiple species. House Vorith has been planning this coup for years, Captain Briggs continued. They have bought influence throughout the coalition, which is why this chamber was so eager to look the other way. But Earth does not ignore genocide, and we will not allow a young woman to be handed over to her family's murderers. General Draven's expression turned murderous. You dare threaten House Vorith? I'm not threatening anyone, Captain Briggs said calmly. I'm offering sanctuary. Kira, if you wish it, Earth will grant you asylum. You will be protected under human law, and House Vorith will have to go through us to get to you. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some representatives supported Earth's position. Others feared offending House Vorith. But David noticed something interesting. More ships were arriving outside, not just human ones. Other species were sending vessels too, curious about what was happening. Kira stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. I accept Earth's offer of sanctuary, and I formally accuse House Vorith of murdering the Sovereign Council and attempting to destroy Draconi culture and history. Lies, General Draven roared. Then allow an independent investigation, Captain Briggs suggested. If House Vorith has nothing to hide, they should welcome the chance to clear their name. Commander Shulnai was backed into a corner now. Public opinion was shifting. The smaller species in the coalition, the ones who feared becoming House Vorith's next target, were speaking up in support of Kira. This hearing is postponed, Commander Shulnai announced. The Coalition Council will review all evidence and make a formal decision within 48 hours. Until then, Kira will remain in Coalition custody under human protection. General Draven pointed at David and Kira. You have signed your death warrants. House Vorith does not forget insults, and humans don't abandon those we protect, David replied. As the chamber emptied, Captain Briggs approached David and Kira. That was quite a speech. Earth Command has been monitoring your situation since you made that distress call on the old military frequency. I wasn't sure anyone still monitored those channels, David admitted. We monitor everything, Captain Briggs said with a slight smile, especially when one of our own is in trouble. Kira looked at David, then at the human captain. Why do this? Your species gains nothing from protecting me. Captain Briggs looked surprised by the question. We gain the knowledge that we did the right thing. Is not that enough? For the first time since David had met her, Kira smiled. It was small and uncertain, but genuine. Perhaps humans are not weak after all. The 48 hours passed in tense silence. David stayed with Kira in the protected quarters that Earth's diplomatic team had secured. Outside, The situation was deteriorating rapidly. House Vorath had not accepted the coalition's decision to review the evidence. Instead, they sent more ships. Lots more ships. Through the viewport, David counted at least 200 Draconiai warships surrounding Coalition Station Harmony. Each one bristled with enough weapons to destroy a small planet. The message was clear. House Vorath would take Kira by force if necessary. Captain Briggs visited them on the second morning. She looked tired, as if she had not slept at all. House Vorath has issued an ultimatum, she said. Surrender Kira within 6 hours, or they will destroy the station. Can the coalition defend against them? David asked. No, Captain Briggs admitted. We have maybe 30 combat-capable ships here, and most species are already evacuating. House Vorath has mobilized their entire fleet. This is not about Kira anymore. This is about showing the galaxy that no one can challenge their power. Kira stood at the viewport, staring at the warships. I should surrender myself. Better one death than millions. That's not happening, David said immediately. David is right, Captain Briggs agreed. If we give in to this threat, House Vorath will know they can bully the entire galaxy into submission. This is the line we have to hold. Then many will die because of me, Kira said quietly. Before anyone could respond, Captain Briggs received an urgent communication. She listened, and her expression shifted from concern to surprise. Earth has called for an emergency session of the Coalition Assembly, she said. Ambassador Lu Wei is about to make a formal address. It's being broadcast across every system in the galaxy. She activated the room's main screen. A woman appeared, elderly and dignified, standing before the assembled representatives of hundreds of worlds. Ambassador Lu Wei had been Earth's voice in the galaxy for over 20 years. Members of the Coalition, citizens of all species, the ambassador began. We face a crisis that will define who we are as a galactic community. House Vorath demands we surrender a young woman who has done nothing wrong except survive the murder of her family. They threaten war if we do not comply. And I am here to tell you that Earth will not comply. The ambassador touched a control, and new images appeared on screens across the galaxy. For the past year, human archaeologists have been excavating ancient ruins on abandoned Draconiai colony worlds. What we found was shocking. The Draconiai we know today, the fierce warriors who inspire fear across the stars, are nothing like the Draconiai of old. The images showed beautiful cities now in ruins. Art and architecture that spoke of a culture far more advanced and peaceful than the modern Draconiai. 3,000 years ago, the Draconiai were not conquerors, Ambassador Lu continued. They were guardians. They traveled among the stars, forming bonds with other species, protecting them, learning from them. Draconiai philosophy was built on a concept they called Sarity, which roughly translates to strength and service to others. More images appeared. Ancient texts, carefully translated by human linguists. Songs and poems that spoke of cooperation, friendship, and the joy of protecting those weaker than yourself. But civil war destroyed this culture, the ambassador said. Factions like House Vorath rose to power by erasing history, by burning books and destroying art, by killing anyone who remembered the old ways. They turned the Draconiai into weapons of war because that served their lust for power. Kira was staring at the screen, with tears streaming down her face. These are the stories my mother told me. I thought they were just myths, comforting lies she told to make me feel better about what we had become. They were not lies, Ambassador Lu said, as if she could hear Kira across the distance. We have recovered thousands of documents, songs, and historical records. We have proven beyond doubt that House Vorath has committed cultural genocide against their own people, destroying the true Draconiai heritage to maintain their grip on power. The ambassador played a recording, ancient and crackling with age, but unmistakable. It was the Lullaby of Stars, the same song Kira had hummed to David in the maintenance tunnels. But this version had words, sung in the old Draconiai language. Kira's voice joined the recording, singing along in her own language. David did not understand the words, but he understood the emotion. It was a song about protecting others, about finding strength in compassion, about bonds between different species that could never be broken. The most shocking discovery, Ambassador Lu continued, was evidence of an ancient practice called the guardian bond. Draconi would voluntarily bond with members of other species, dedicating their lives to protecting and supporting their bonded partners. This was considered the highest honor in Draconi culture. Images of ancient artifacts appeared, ceremonial objects depicting Draconi standing beside various aliens, their hands joined in poses of unity. House Vorith has worked for centuries to erase all knowledge of this practice because it represents everything they despise. Cooperation instead of domination. Service instead of conquest. Love instead of fear. Kira suddenly grabbed David's hand. Her scales were glowing faintly, a soft golden light emanating from where their skin touched. "What's happening?" David asked. "The guardian bond," Kira whispered in awe. "It still exists within us. Our biology remembers, even if our culture forgot." The golden light spread, forming intricate patterns across both their arms. It did not hurt. Instead, David felt a sense of connection, of understanding, as if he could sense Kira's emotions and she could sense his. "This has not happened in over 400 years, Captain Briggs said, staring at them. "You just performed an ancient Draconi bonding ceremony." On the screen, Ambassador Lu was still speaking. "Earth proposes the formation of a new coalition, one dedicated to preserving cultural heritage and protecting refugees from political persecution. We call it the Alliance for Historical Truth and Sanctuary, and we invite all species who believe in these principles to join us." The response was immediate. Ships from dozens of species began broadcasting their support. Not everyone, and not the most powerful species, but enough. The smaller civilizations, the ones who had always feared becoming House Vorith's next target, were standing up, but House Vorith was not backing down. Through the viewport, David watched their warships power up weapons. They were going to attack regardless of the political consequences. "All ships, this is General Draven of House Vorith. You have interfered in Draconi affairs for the last time. We will take the criminal by force, and we will destroy anyone who stands in our way." The warships moved into attack formation. Station Harmony's defensive shields activated, but everyone knew they would not hold long against such overwhelming firepower. Then something impossible happened, that a massive hyperspace portal opened, larger than any David had ever seen. A ship emerged, and collective gasps echoed through every communication channel. It was a Draconi dreadnought, but not like the modern warships. This vessel was ancient, its design matching the architecture from the historical images Ambassador Lu had shown. It was beautiful rather than threatening, powerful but elegant. "This is Elder Matriarch Silra of the true Draconi," a voice broadcast across all frequencies. "House Vorith, you have been deceived. The royal bloodline did not end with the Sovereign Council. I am Kira's grandmother, and I have returned with thousands of Draconi who never forgot the old ways." More ships emerged from the portal. Hundreds of them, all bearing the markings of the ancient Draconi civilization. "Impossible!" General Draven's voice came through, shaken for the first time. "You died in the first purge." "I survived," Silra replied, "as did many others. We have been hiding in the Outer Rim colonies for decades, preserving our true culture, waiting for the moment when we could reclaim our heritage. That moment is now." Kira was crying openly now, her whole body shaking. "My grandmother lives. My family lives. For years, we watched House Vorith destroy everything we valued," Silra continued. "We watched them turn our people into weapons and monsters. But we also watched something else. We watched humans show the galaxy what we once were. Compassion, service, protection of the weak. Humans reminded us of who the Draconi used to be." The ancient dreadnought moved between House Vorith's fleet and the station. "House Vorith, you have one chance to surrender," Silra said. "Face trial for your crimes, or face us in battle. But know this, we are not alone. The humans stand with us, and many species are ready to stand against tyranny." The warships of House Vorith hesitated. Their commanders argued over open channels. Some wanted to fight. Others recognized they were facing not just military opposition, but a revolution within their own species. Slowly, ships began breaking formation. First one, then 10, then hundreds. Dracanii who had served House Vorith out of fear or ignorance were defecting, joining Silra's fleet. General Draven's ship tried to fire on the defectors, but other ships blocked his shots. Within minutes, what had been an overwhelming force became a scattered remnant. "This is not over," Draven broadcast before his ship jumped to hyperspace, followed by only a few dozen Loyalist vessels. The docking bay of Coalition Station Harmony had never been so crowded. Dracanii from Silra's fleet mingled with humans, aliens, and even former House Vorith soldiers who had defected. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful, like the moment after a storm when everyone is still checking for damage but relieved the worst has passed. David stood with Kira, watching as the elder matriarch's shuttle approached. Kira's hand gripped his tightly, the golden light of their guardian bond still visible on their skin. She was terrified and excited in equal measure. What if she is angry with me for bonding with a human? Kira whispered. The old traditions are sacred. Then she'll have to deal with me too, David said. We're in this together now, remember? The shuttle landed, and the boarding ramp extended. An elderly Dracanii emerged, her scales a pale blue-white like winter frost. Age had not diminished her presence. She moved with dignity and power, and every Dracanii in the bay immediately bowed their heads in respect. Elder matriarch Silra's amber eyes, so similar to Kira's, scanned the crowd until they found her granddaughter. For a long moment, they just stared at each other across the distance. Then Silra opened her arms. Kira ran to her grandmother, all royal dignity forgotten. They embraced, both crying openly. David felt emotion tighten his throat as he watched the reunion. Around him, other species watched too, many of them moved by the sight. After several minutes, Silra pulled back and looked at Kira properly. You have grown strong, little flame. Your mother would be proud. I thought I was alone, Kira said through tears. I thought everyone was gone. Never alone, Silra said firmly. She looked past Kira to David. And you have found a guardian. A human guardian, no less. That is fitting. She approached David, and he resisted the urge to step back. Up close, Silra was even more impressive, easily 3 times his size. But her eyes were kind. You are David Reed, Silra said. It was not a question. The human who risked everything to save my granddaughter. I did what anyone should do, David said simply. But most do not, Silra replied. She looked at the golden marks on his and Kira's arms. You have formed a guardian bond. Do you understand what this means? Honestly? Not really, David admitted. It just happened. Silra smiled, an expression that transformed her face from intimidating to warm. The guardian bond is not chosen consciously. It forms when 2 souls recognize each other as protector and protected, when trust is absolute and the desire to serve each other is genuine. It is the most sacred connection in Dracanii culture. She placed one clawed hand on David's shoulder, gentle despite her strength. You have given us more than you know. For 400 years, no Dracanii has formed a guardian bond. We thought the ability was lost, that House Vorith had destroyed that part of our nature. But you proved it still exists within us. You reminded us who we truly are. Captain Briggs approached with Ambassador Lu Wei. The elderly diplomat bowed slightly to Silra. Elder Matriarch, Earth extends its formal recognition of your authority as leader of the true Dracanii, Ambassador Lu said. We also offer assistance in rebuilding your culture and protecting your people from House Vorith remnants. Your species has already given us so much, Silra said. But yes, we accept your friendship. It is time the Dracanii remembered how to have friends. Over the next few hours, coalition representatives met with Silra and her advisors. House Vorith's crimes were formally recognized. Arrest warrants were issued for General Draven and his commanders. More importantly, the coalition agreed to help preserve and restore Dracanii historical sites and cultural artifacts. David and Kira slipped away from the political discussions, finding a quiet observation deck overlooking the stars. The golden light of their bond pulsed gently, a constant reminder of their connection. Everything has changed, Kira said softly. A week ago, I was running for my life, certain I would die alone. Now my grandmother lives, my people are free, and I have a guardian bond with a human. Quite a week, David agreed. What happens now? Kira asked. For us, I mean. The bond is permanent. We are connected for life. David looked at her, this fierce and gentle being who had changed his life as much as he had changed hers. I was thinking I could use a co-pilot. My cargo hauler has room for two, and I hear Draconi have excellent navigation skills. Kira's eyes widened. You want me to come with you? To continue your cargo runs? Why not? Someone has to make sure I don't take any more stupid shortcuts through asteroid fields, David said with a small smile. Besides, the bond means we're stronger together. Might as well put that to good use. But I'm a princess, Kira said. My grandmother will want me to help lead our people. And you can, David pointed out. We can travel between Draconi colonies, help with rebuilding, deliver supplies where they are needed. Your people are scattered across the galaxy. They will need someone to connect them, to remind them they are not alone. Kira considered this, then smiled. A guardian and her bonded human, traveling the stars to help those in need. That sounds like something from the old stories. Then let's make it a new story, David said. 6 months later, David's cargo hauler, now renamed the Second Chance, approached a small colony on the edge of civilized space. The colony had been hit by a natural disaster, and they needed medical supplies urgently. Kira sat in the co-pilot's seat, her wings carefully folded to fit in the small cockpit. She had healed completely, and her scales now gleamed with health. More importantly, she smiled often, something David had learned was rare for Draconi. We are cleared for landing, Kira reported. The colonists are very grateful for the supplies. Just doing our job, David said. As they landed, David noticed a group of young Draconi waiting at the spaceport. They wore the colors of the true Draconi, and they stared at the Second Chance with obvious excitement. I think you have fans, David said. Kira looked and laughed. They want to see a real guardian bond. Stories of us have spread across Draconi space. We have become something of a symbol. They unloaded the medical supplies, and the colonists thanked them profusely. The young Draconi approached shyly, asking Kira questions about Earth, about humans, about what it was like to have a guardian bond. One young male, barely old enough to fly, looked at David with obvious awe. Is it true you stood against House Vorith for the princess? I stood with her, David corrected gently. There's a difference. My teacher says humans have taught us to be Draconi again, the young one continued. That you remembered what we forgot. David looked at Kira, and she looked back at him. The golden light of their bond pulsed warmly. We just helped each other, David said. That's what friends do. As they prepared to leave, Captain Briggs contacted them. She had a proposition. Earth was establishing guardian centers across the galaxy, places where species could learn about cooperation, compassion, and mutual protection. They wanted David and Kira to help run them. It would mean less cargo hauling, Captain Briggs said, but more impact. You two have shown the galaxy something important. We want to build on that. David and Kira discussed it during their next jump through hyperspace. They could continue their simple life, or they could help shape something bigger. What do you think? David asked. I think my mother would tell me that those who have been given much must give much in return, Kira said. We have been given this bond, this second chance at life. Perhaps we should use it to help others find their own second chances. Guardian centers it is, then, David agreed. 3 years after David first found Kira's damaged escape pod in an asteroid field, the first Guardian Center opened on Earth. Draconi youth came to learn about human culture. Human students came to learn about Draconi history. Other species joined too, all seeking to understand what made the bond between protector and protected so powerful. Kira taught classes on Draconi philosophy and the old ways. David taught about human history and the principles of humanitarian aid. Together, they demonstrated what the Guardian Bond looked like in practice. House Vorith still existed, reduced but not destroyed. General Draven had established a fortress in the outer systems, and occasionally his ships raided colonies or attacked true Draconi vessels. But each attack only strengthened the resolve of those who opposed him. The galaxy was changing. More species adopted humanitarian principles. The Alliance for Historical Truth and Sanctuary grew stronger. Young Draconiai were learning to balance their warrior heritage with the compassion of their ancestors. On the anniversary of their first meeting, David and Kira stood on Earth, watching the sunset over the Guardian Center's main campus. Students from a dozen species walked past, talking and laughing together. "Do you ever regret it?" Kira asked. "You could have ignored my distress signal. You could have lived your quiet life." David thought about his cargo hauler, gathering dust in a hangar now. He thought about the years he had spent running from his pain, hiding in work and solitude. Then he looked at Kira, at the golden bond marks on their arms, at the students whose lives they touched every day. "Not for a second," he said. "Good," Kira said. She leaned against him companionably, her massive frame surprisingly gentle. "Because I've spent my entire life being told that Draconii must be strong and fierce and solitary. But you taught me that real strength is found in connection, in trust, in being willing to protect and be protected." A young human student approached them nervously. "Excuse me, Guardian Reed, Guardian Kira? There's a new group of refugees arriving tomorrow. They are scared and alone. Will you help us welcome them?" David and Kira looked at each other and smiled. "Of course," they said together. "That's what Guardians do." As the sun set on Earth, similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Humans and Draconii working together. Former enemies becoming friends. Species learning that strength and compassion were not opposites but partners. And somewhere in deep space, a cargo hauler's distress beacon still blinked, a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness, the simple decision to help someone in need, can change the course of entire civilizations. David Reed had helped a dragon girl who needed him. What happened next left everyone speechless, not because it was impossible, but because it proved what had always been possible. That different species, different cultures, different ways of being could come together and create something better than what existed before. The guardian bond between human and Draconii became a symbol recognized across thousands of worlds. A symbol that said strength was not about domination but protection, that power was meaningless without compassion, and that the greatest civilizations were built not on conquest, but on the simple courage to help those who needed it most. And it all started because one human saw someone in trouble and decided that was reason enough to care.